Call the meeting to order. Are there any substitutions? And Minister Steves for Wetmore.
Megan Mitten for Kevin Arsenault.
Mitten for Arsenault. Is it the pleasure of the committee to take into consideration Bill number 14, an act respecting the Assessment Act? For yea? Yea. Against nay? Carried. Minister, do you have any opening remarks? And introduce your staff.
I do. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before we get going. So good afternoon, everybody. We're here today to talk about amendments to the Assessment Act and the general regulation that we introduced on November 1st. We have a vacancy rate that I keep talking about, but you all realize it's only 1.7%, and this legislation is meant to encourage more development on the number of rental units across this province and maybe alleviate some of our supply and demand cost pressures that our tenants are facing. The proposed amendments include a 3-year phased-in assessment on the assessment values on newly constructed apartment buildings with 2 or more units, and existing buildings being refurbished to add more rental units. The assessment for these buildings would be phased in at 33% the first year, 66% in the second, and 100% in year 3. I have a small but mighty staff here with me today. I have Alan Roy, the Chief Executive Officer for Service New Brunswick, Lisa Dion, the Executive Director of Property Assessment Services, and Judy Ross, Vice President of Public Services. And I'm pleased to answer any questions the members opposite have for me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Restigouche-Chalor. Sorry.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. On a eu de l'expérience, moi puis la ministre, dans un autre portefeuille, dans un autre dossier. Puis, la ministre a collaboré sur tous les points. Je ne prévois pas de problème. Je ne pense pas que c'est un projet de loi qui est très compliqué. Mais je vais tout de même avoir des questions sur la situation. Puis, vous avez parlé de votre équipe qui n'est pas volumineuse, qui n'a pas beaucoup de personnes, mais qui sont puissants. Puis, anecdote en passant, lorsque je suis devenu chef de cabinet en 2006, le ministre Haché, à l'époque, ministre de l'Environnement, m'a demandé de son chef de cabinet, j'ai accepté. La première personne que j'ai rencontrée, puis là, j'arrivais à Fredericton, puis j'étais à Marysville, l'autre côté, à l'ancien moulin, puis la première personne qui est venue voir, c'est M. Roy. Il est venu à mon bureau, le bureau, à la réception, m'a amené au bureau, puis il m'a expliqué c'était quoi la paye, c'était quoi ci, c'était quoi ça, comment ça marchait, puis ça me prenait un CV, patati patata. C'est la première personne que j'ai rencontrée, puis j'ai travaillé 2 ans, je crois, avec le ministre Haché, puis on a bien eu du plaisir, puis M. Roy a toujours collaboré, puis je me souviens encore des bons moments qu'on a eus ensemble au ministère de l'Environnement. Donc, je suis convaincu qu'aujourd'hui, ça va bien aller. Madame la ministre, on vit une situation qui n'est pas facile pour vous, pas facile pour les citoyens, pas facile pour nous, les députés, puis les 2 côtés de la Chambre. J'aimerais que vous me décriviez dans vos mots la situation que vous avez, lorsque vous avez... Premièrement, je vous félicite, votre discours est beaucoup plus positif que l'ancienne ministre, sans vouloir rien enlever à l'ancienne ministre Cordé. On fait tout notre possible, là, mais votre discours est plus positif. Il n'y a pas de question. Sauf, je suis convaincu que lorsque vous avez arrivé la première journée, M. Roy, vous a probablement mis au parfum de la situation. C'est quoi la situation à l'heure actuelle, dans vos mots, dans les mots des gens de votre ministère?
Through the chair to the members opposite, I actually had an understanding of the situation we were in before I got to Service New Brunswick and got made the minister responsible for housing. I knew we were in crisis. The last minister was very good at telling us what the problems were that we were facing as a province. Our issue is our supply. We do not have enough units. We do not have enough housing units, and it doesn't actually matter whether it's rental units or homes. We do not have enough supply for our current population and for our needs. And you know, one of the wonderful things about creating a ministry responsible for housing is now we can pull together all the great work that's happening across government related to housing with an eye to the whole, rather than each individual department responsible for their own pieces of the housing spectrum. And you know, an incredible amount of work was done, and very, very good work, with the 90-day rental review back early on when I joined the team and when I was elected. And it provided a good summary of what the state of affairs are here in New Brunswick. And it wasn't great. There's no question it wasn't great. So, but even when we look at that, there's more pieces that are associated with the housing spectrum. So now we can look with an eye to the whole, understand what gaps are in the system, and then look at programs that government can put in place to fill those gaps. And maybe make adjustments to existing programs because they're not quite meeting the needs of New Brunswickers. So, you know, this is a supply issue, but there's all kinds of different things that government can do to help with the supply issue, and this is one piece of it. And I'm very happy to be here talking about this. We need more development. We need to spur more development. We need more units. That's the bottom line. Thank you.
De ce côté-ci de la Chambre, Monsieur le Président, si on peut aider la ministre à se procurer plus de fonds, si ses collègues cabinet peuvent lui donner plus de fonds pour l'aider, on va collaborer à 100%. Est-ce que la ministre pourrait me dire le nombre d'unités qu'on a au Nouveau-Brunswick? Je ne parle pas des résidences, là, je parle surtout des appartements. Je sais qu'elle a mentionné un taux tout à l'heure, j'ai cru comprendre que c'était 1,1% de taux d'inoccupation, jusqu'à pouvoir me répéter le taux, plus le nombre d'unités qu'on a à l'heure actuelle.
Through the chair to the member opposite, there's 38,000 units we currently have, and it's 1.7% vacancy rate. And just a note, we update that information each year, and we should be getting that from MHC shortly, so we'll have updated numbers early in the new year.
138 000, s'il vous plaît. Vous avez parlé d'un taux de 1,7 %. Qu'est-ce qui pourrait être un taux idéal?
Through the chair to the member opposite, a healthy number for our economy is between 3% and 4% vacancy rate, which is where we were in 2019. Between 3% and 4%.
Donc, si je mets ça en unité, puis peut-être que la ministre pourrait me rassurer sur les chiffres, on a présentement approximativement 650 unités de disponibles, puis on aimerait en avoir à peu près 1300. Est-ce que ça fait du sens?
Through the chair to the member opposite, very good math. Yes, you are correct.
Monsieur le Président, j'aimerais savoir de la ministre si le taux est semblable dans les différents secteurs de la province. J'aimerais savoir le nord, le nord-ouest, le nord-est, les trois grandes villes. Est-ce que le taux de 1,7 est le même partout ou est-ce qu'il y a des endroits plus critiques que d'autres?
Through the chair to the member opposite, yes, it is a different amount of vacancy rate around the province. The analysis has been done in 4 quarters, so there's the northern part of the province, the Moncton area, the Fredericton area, and the St. John area. I do not have the map in front of me with the exact numbers, but I do know Moncton area was the worst, Fredericton area second, the north was third, and the St. John area was fourth, I believe. But I will provide you with a copy of that map afterwards, if that's okay. I cannot remember the numbers off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
Je vous demande pas de ne pas vous souvenir des chiffres. Il y a des fois, j'oublie la date de fête de mon épouse. Donc, vous êtes pardonné. Mon épouse dit que c'est une mémoire sélective. Moi, je dis que c'est pas de la méchante volonté. Donc, pour régler notre situation, on parlerait d'à peu près 650 nouveaux logis dans la province, grosso modo.
Through the chair to the member opposite, we have a great team that's behind the scenes too. I have some numbers for you if you'd like, even though I don't have the map in front of me. So the Moncton area is about 1.5%. St. John area is 2.1. Fredericton area is 1.8. Bathurst is 1.8. Campbellton is 0.3. Edmundston 2.7. And Miramichi 0.3. And then the map I have has that all averaged out in the quadrants. Now, the second piece of your question is, do we just need 650 more units? It's more fluid than that, unfortunately. As you've heard us say a number of times, we're excited about the growth in the province. That growth isn't the same in every piece of the province. And so, high-level picture, 650, yes, but it's really, it would be more than that as we're growing.
Monsieur le Président, est-ce que la ministre pourrait me dire le nombre de constructions de loyers ou de domiciles? Je ne parle pas des résidences, mais je parle des édifices à logement. Le nombre d'unités. Un édifice à logement peut être 15, 20, 25, 30, 40. Des fois, c'est moins, des fois, c'est plus. Le nombre d'unités qu'on aurait eu en 2018, en 2019, les 2 années avant la pandémie. Le nombre de nouvelles constructions qu'on aurait eues dans les années où le problème ne semblait pas être aussi évident ailleurs. Il y avait des endroits qui avaient des problèmes. On a discuté, je me souviens, en 2016-17, lorsque j'étais au gouvernement, dans la région de Moncton, mais c'était moins évident ailleurs dans la province. Donc, j'aurais aimé savoir, en 2018-2019, les constructions qu'on a eues, le montant de construction, le nombre de logements qu'on avait réussi à faire à l'époque.
Chair, to the member opposite, the team is working on getting those numbers together, so you want to move on and we can come back to this and after I get them sent to me?
Okay, while they're at it, I also wanted to have the figure for 2020, 2021, and so far this year, 2022. So if they can come up with the amount, and we'll give you time to do the calc. You've said at the start of the meeting that you were, now that you had a minister designated for this situation, that it involved other departments. Could you list me the department that you're consulting with at the moment?
Oh, yeah. Chair, to the member opposite, it's a pretty long list. Finance and Treasury Board, Social Development, Health, Opportunities New Brunswick, RDC, Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labor, Transportation and Infrastructure, and Environment and Local Government. Oh, did I say SNB? And us, and SNB as well. That line next time my wife complains that I'm forgetting his birthday. Minister forgot her own department. No, joking. I suppose finance is involved because you're having programs such as the one you're putting forward. Health. Could you tell me an example why health would be involved? I'm just trying. There's people, I know there's people that lives with mental situation there, but I was trying to find out why. Through the chair to the member opposite, you know, I have talked about the housing spectrum quite a bit. And the start of that is homelessness, and the end of it is assisted living. It's a long spectrum, and health is very much involved in the very front end of it related to homelessness, mental health and addictions. So they are part of this discussion as well, because we are really looking at the full spectrum. And I do have some numbers here for you now on the units. Do you want, like, I can give you totals for each year. I can, so I've got 2019, 2020, and 21. And then, pardon me? Yeah, and this isn't a touch screen. Okay, so okay, 2018, 2019, 2020, and you said totals? Okay, 2018, 717. 2019, 1,038. 2020, 527. And then we get, and the next one, my numbers I have for new construction counts, I have them for 2019, 2020, and 2021, and year-to-date for this year. So in 2019, we had 64 new constructions, which had a total of 1,303 units. In 2020, we had 84 new constructions for a total of 2,232 new units. In 2021, we had 135 with 2,177 units, and in 2022, 45 with 689 units.
Il y a eu une grosse variation de 2019 à 2020, probablement que la pandémie a un mot à dire, mais en 2022, la pandémie est finie, la construction débute. Qu'est-ce qui peut être les facteurs qui font qu'on a seulement 680 unités qui a été mis sur pied, puis il y a définitivement un besoin, là. Les constructeurs vont, si qu'on construit des loyers, là, on va trouver des personnes pour les habiter, là. Qu'est-ce qui seraient les facteurs qui font que ça a diminué pratiquement de moitié, même plus?
Through the chair to the member opposite, there's a lot of factors that are affecting development and how much development is happening. In my previous role, I talked about it quite a bit, but we certainly have cost of material issues. Everything is costing more. We have a labor shortage, even though our population is exploding. We have supply chain issues, so even when you start a project, it's very difficult to get it completed because it's hard to get the equipment and materials you need to build the project. Also, need to reflect that many of these projects are very large projects and they can take multiple years to complete, which is related directly to the bill that we're talking about today, or the proposed amendments to the Act. Interest rates are going up. And then, you know, developers are nervous because of the rent cap as well. I mean, that's another issue they have expressed to me. So there's a lot of different reasons impacting the amount of development, and that's why it's important to look at the whole picture as we put new strategies in place to enhance the number of units we have there to help the public and help all the new people coming to New Brunswick so they have somewhere safe to live. Thank you.
Monsieur le Président, merci à la ministre pour les chiffres qu'elle nous a donnés. Ça éclaire un peu la situation à l'heure actuelle. Vous avez parlé de plusieurs ministères il y en a qui m'intriguent. Il y en a un qui n'est pas là du tout, puis je me demande si c'est pas juste un oubli ou c'est les affaires intergouvernementales. Les affaires intergouvernementales, c'est celui-là qui va négocier jusqu'à un certain point les entendre avec le gouvernement fédéral. Puis le gouvernement fédéral veut aider à ce niveau-là. est-ce qu'il est inclus? Puis, dans la liste de ceux que vous consultez.
Chair to the member opposite, IGA is part of RDC, so I didn't directly mention them, but they are working with us, definitely working with us.
OK, ça va répondre probablement, à moins que vous me dites le contraire. Je me demandais qu'est-ce que RDC venait faire dans ce qu'on allait détourner des fonds de RDC dans des programmes actuels pour les logements ou ces choses-là, ou que c'est vrai. Hein? Ah, c'est Opportunité d'aujourd'hui qui détourne les fonds? OK. Je voulais savoir c'était quoi, là, est-ce qu'il y a possibilité qu'on transfère des fonds de programmes qui est pour le développement économique ou le développement des régions rurales ou l'aide aux communautés pour aider au niveau des logements. Puis je ne dis pas qu'on nous pour, je pose juste la question.
Through the chair to the member opposite, it's a very interesting question. I guess I'll start by saying it's incredible the amount of support that has come behind this new ministry and this new portfolio. And each of those departments that I talked about has leapt in with both feet to try to help, because everybody realizes we are in a crisis situation right now and we can't be dilly-dallying, and not making decisions. So part of our responsibility very early on is to set a high-level strategy for us after completely understanding the spectrum and what gaps exist in the spectrum, and then a high-level strategy, and then we'll put programs in place or change existing programs to move the needle and move the bar and solve this crisis that we're in right now. Each department has a role to play in that. And we are one team, one GNB, and they're actually acting like it on this file. Everybody's in. And, when we are prepared to recommend some new programs or some changes to programs, we will work to find the money where we need to find the money, and I'll tell you all about it when we get there.
Comme j'ai dit, je ne suis pas nécessairement contre une crise, puis il faut la régler. Là. Puis si vous me dites, j'enlève de l'argent pour un projet de la région Chaleur pour permettre à 2, 3 personnes qui restent dans des chambres d'hôtel ou qui couchent dans une tente ce soir, là, je vais être d'accord avec vous. Ça fait, comme j'ai dit, je n'argumente pas sur qu'est-ce qui va être fait. Je voulais juste savoir si c'était une possibilité. Combien de... Je suppose que ça fait 3 semaines, 1 mois. Je présume que les consultations ont débuté avant. Mais à combien de reprises vous vous rencontrez avec les différents ministères pour discuter de la situation?
Through the chair to the member opposite, there's too many meetings, lots of meetings. So we have, the ministers are talking every day. You can see us over here, and we're talking about housing a lot. The senior management teams get together very regularly, and then there's different levels that are meeting regularly, sometimes daily, weekly. Yes, it started as soon as the new ministry was created, although there was conversations related to this going on before that, but the focus is really put the spotlight on this. We're also meeting with stakeholders, many stakeholders out in the community. I'm rushing out of here all the time doing different meetings, meeting with stakeholders, listening to what they have to say. If you want me to go through the calendar and tell you every single meeting, I didn't think you would like that. But we're listening, we're gathering as much information as we possibly can to build on the work that's already been done in the past and to make this a comprehensive strategy going forward. Thank you.
Comme j'ai dit, le discours est intéressant, le discours est positif, puis c'est plaisant de voir que tout le monde travaille ensemble pour trouver une solution. Puis on a une bonne bureaucratie au Nouveau-Brunswick. Les gens sont brillants, puis si que nous, les politiciens, on leur donne les outils, ils vont faire leur travail. Je vais vous conter une petite anecdote, puis vous pourrez me dire si c'est un sujet qui a été adressé. J'étais, on va dire, 2014, je rencontre des gens à Bathurst, à la fondation du collège communautaire, ou du collège, c'était l'ancien collège Sacré-Cœur. Puis on voulait construire 10 unités, sans frais, ça ne coûtait rien en province. Puis j'étais un député du gouvernement. Puis lorsqu'on a présenté ça au ministère, qui était éducation postsecondaire, mais là c'est OK, c'est qu'on construit, parce qu'on voulait construire sur les terrains, parce qu'il n'y a pas de transport en commun à Bathurst, donc c'était pour les étudiants. Là, c'était toutes sortes de complications. Mais qu'est-ce qui va payer les assurances? S'il y a un accident, mais qu'est-ce qui va rénover ces bâtisses-là dans 20 ans? Toutes sortes de questions, là. Tu dis, ils ne veulent juste pas avancer. OK? Ce n'est pas nécessairement la faute des fonctionnaires, ça dépend peut-être du mandat qui leur a été donné. Mais est-ce que vous regardez aussi, vous venez du ministère des Transports, vous êtes un ingénieur en plus de ça. S'il y a des personnes qui peuvent mettre des virgules, puis des points, puis des barres, puis des fois plus de virgules qu'on a besoin, c'est bien des gens avec plusieurs lettres au bout de leur nom. Donc, est-ce que c'est des choses qui sont discutées? Est-ce que la bureaucratie, l'administration, la partie, tous les petits règlements, toutes ces petites choses-là, là, qu'on se pose une multitude de questions au lieu de bouger, là, est-ce que ça va être adressé ou est-ce que c'est adressé dans ces suites de réunions-là que vous avez?
So through the chair to the member opposite, when I say one team, one GNB, it's really the way it is working on this file currently. And because if there was red tape there in the past, we're moving it out of the way and going. Each department has jumped in full hog and actually are ready to do things before we're even there yet. And we have to say, slow down for a minute and we got to catch up. So yes, there sometimes is red tape in the system, but I feel confident that we're going to move the red tape out of the way to get some things done. You can't sit and wait during a crisis. You need to act immediately.
OK. On a parlé de chiffres tout à l'heure. Monsieur le Président, est-ce qu'on a une idée du nombre? On sait qu'on a besoin à peu près 650 logements vite fait pour amener le taux à 4 3 à 4 Est-ce qu'on a un estimé du nombre de logements ou qu'on s'attend ou est-ce qu'il y a des prévisions pour 2023? Puis s'il y a des prévisions, comment c'est fait? Est-ce que c'est par des discussions avec les entrepreneurs ou c'est juste basé sur des statistiques du passé ou de quelle façon que c'est quoi les chiffres qu'on aimerait avoir, de quelle façon qu'on arrive à ces chiffres-là, puis de quelle façon que ces chiffres-là tiennent la route?
To the member opposite, we're sitting here talking about the issues that we have that we're grappling with. And, you know, you talk about the 650, we've done an analysis and we really need 4,000 to 5,000 more units because of the population growth, because of change in demographics. So we are a baby boomer population, people are retiring. You know, many of the units that are being built right now are the higher end units, you know, with rents 2,000, 1,800, 2,000 and above, and not affordable housing units. And so you have the older generation moving to these higher end units, selling their homes, but then you also have the young executives that don't want to deal with a lawn and with, you know, all the things associated with maintaining a property and a house. So you're balancing that with different people in different places in their life having different housing needs. And that's why there's no easy answer to this. The vacancy rate could be, you know, a percentage for a certain type of unit, could be much higher than a different type of unit. Our housing stock, its vacancy rate can fluctuate and be different because of these shifts of the demographics around the province. And then we also have, you know, things are booming in some of our major cities, and so their populations from their rural areas are also moving into the urban areas. We have workforce moving in, working at different businesses around our province. Housing for them is a challenge. So there's so many moving parts. If only there was one answer to solve this problem, and there isn't, and that's why we have different things that we're bringing into the House and changes we're making. This one specifically is related to new housing units. It's acknowledging the fact that we are in a time where our cost of materials are high, we have supply chain issues and labor issues, and that just extends the period of time to construct these rental properties, these rental units. And so this particular bill is being proposed to encourage more development by not doing a full assessment on the property until it's built and able to be populated. So, and I don't know if that's exactly answering your question, so ask it again if it wasn't.
Your answer is generating another question. I thought the bill was, and maybe it's my misunderstanding, I thought the bill was for, let's say, construction, people are moving in, and then the owner would have 3 years, or only the third year would see the full value being taxed, okay? Well, you seem to be saying that it's for those that'll take 3 years to build. Am I misunderstanding the either your answer or the bill itself?
So for a clarification through the chair to the member opposite, some developers may be able to build units much faster because we're applying this to 2 units and above. And so it is possible to do it faster than 3 years. The very, very large projects would take 2 to 3 years. This is to encourage development. If a developer can get a property built in a year and have it filled in a year, good for them. They would still benefit from this proposed amendment. But this amendment also addresses vacant units. We do have stock out there that are vacant that have not had the maintenance done on them that's required, for example. So this bill would also apply to any building that had been vacant for 2 years, that they had done improvements to and brought units back on the line. And there was another piece to it too. It's not the rental, the use? Yeah, so, and if they had a change of use, so if they added more units to a building, it would apply as well.
OK. J'avais bien compris, mais ça peut toucher les deux genres de construction, si vous voulez, les terminés puis les en construction. Avez-vous une idée? Vous avez parlé aussi de plusieurs programmes, vous regardez à plusieurs choses, puis je présume que dans les prochaines semaines, mois, on va avoir d'autres informations qui vont circuler, d'autres initiatives. Mais celle-ci, ce projet de loi comme tel, qu'est-ce qui serait l'estimé on a mis un projet, on pense que ça va aider. Combien de plus de loyers ou d'unités de logement que ça pourrait nous donner? Juste l'initiative. Pas d'initiative du tout versus celle-là. Suite à celle-là, exemple, on a dit qu'on a eu 600 l'an passé. Puis si j'ai fait mes calculs, on s'en donnera encore 600 cette année. Donc, on se rapprocherait du 3 ou 4 L'initiative actuelle, est-ce que ça va nous en donner 700, 800, 900?
So through the chair to the member opposite, 2021 was our biggest year for building permits, new building permits. Not all those are online yet. So we based our calculations on that. We believe that we can attract 135 additional units based on the changes that we're making here after many meetings with stakeholders to assess what the appetite in the market could be. And remember, we're also trying to attract developers from outside of New Brunswick to come here and develop. We want them coming here and not going to Ontario or Nova Scotia or PEI, not picking on our sister provinces at all, but you know, we want them to come here and build here to help us fix the problems we currently have. So, and if you look at the 2021 numbers, so I'm saying 135 buildings, the average number of units in a building was 16 in 2021, if you average it out on all buildings versus number of units.
So, Monsieur le Président, si j'ai bien compris, on pourrait avoir 135 ou 138 constructions additionnelles à cause du projet de loi?
Correct.
Puis, Combien est-ce qu'on avait eu encore en 2022 à date? C'était pas 130 quelque chose? Pareil?
So through the chair to the member opposite, so 2021 was our banner year. We had the most building permits, the most units being constructed, although they weren't all done in the 2021 year. It was good. 2021 was good. And then 2022 was 45, which is very concerning. It doesn't help our situation at all. If we can get back up to the 135, the 2021 numbers, we start seeing things change for ourselves again. And we believe these incentives will take away some of the trepidation of some of the developers around costs, around cost of materials, labor shortage, all the things that are affecting every construction project that's occurring, not just in New Brunswick, it's all over Canada and beyond. And so our goal is to make New Brunswick a place where people want to develop new units and help us solve our housing crisis.
Merci à la ministre. Puis j'ai aucun doute que la ministre puis l'équipe que vous avez en place, vous voulez régler la situation. Aucun doute. Merci pour l'éclaircissement. C'était 45, puis mon collègue me l'a répété hier. C'est 45 unités, 138. Donc, on augmente de 93 unités. Chapeau. Dans vos consultations, je présume que vous avez consulté les propriétaires, les gens qui construisent, les constructeurs, les gens de la construction. Cette idée-là de venir avec ce projet de loi-là, est-ce que c'est quelque chose qui a été pondu suite à des demandes des contracteurs? Parce que moi, j'ai rencontré un monsieur chez nous, puis lui m'a donné d'autres idées. Celle-là, c'est complètement nouveau pour moi. Je ne dis pas que c'est pas bon, c'est pas ça que je dis. Sauf qu'on m'a parlé de d'autres solutions qui s'appliquaient ailleurs dans les autres provinces. Celle-là, on ne m'en a jamais parlé. Donc, je voulais savoir si cette idée-là venait de vos rencontres que vous avez eues avec la construction ou les investisseurs.
Through the chair to the member opposite. So, you know, one of the things and I remember quite clearly talking back and forth across this house about increased assessment values. And this is all, it's a vicious cycle. We have low stock, so the prices for existing buildings has gone up, therefore the assessment values have gone up. And we had many, many discussions with stakeholders over the last several years, and they have been very strongly indicating that the high cost of everything, material supply, labor, assessments, taxes, impedes development, which we don't want to be happening right now because we need those units constructed. So that is one of many different ideas that have come from our stakeholders. We have completed a jurisdictional scan, and you're right, there's not many other places that are doing anything like this, although in our jurisdictional scans, we did find that there was a number of municipalities across Canada that have done something like this, and they're trying to, you know, Fredericton would, you know, decrease the tax to try to encourage developers to come there rather than Moncton. And this is just an example. This is not actually happening, but in other jurisdictions it has. So, you know, and also in BC, they have started phasing in land values to try to encourage development on vacant land. So many jurisdictions are contemplating many different ways to encourage more development, and this is one that we believe will make a difference here in New Brunswick with the development of new units.
Tout à l'heure, j'ai parlé de bureaucratie à l'intérieur de différents ministères. Puis, regarde, j'ai travaillé au gouvernement fédéral, c'est le même problème. J'ai travaillé dans l'entreprise privée, c'est la même chose. La bureaucratie, c'est comme une vermine qui se nourrit, puis plus de règlements, puis plus de red tape qu'on peut y mettre, plus besoin de bureaucratie qu'on a. Donc, mais à l'intérieur de votre propre ministère, puis là, je ne lance pas la balle à personne, c'est même, je pense que c'était nous autres au gouvernement lorsqu'on a décidé de centraliser les enregistrements des titres à Saint-Stephen. Puis, j'ai eu beaucoup de courriels d'avocats chez nous durant l'été dans la région Chaleur qui se plaignent du nombre de semaines que ça peut prendre. Puis à chaque fois, la ministre m'a répondu, puis à chaque fois, les dossiers ont été réglés. Je sais que le staff et tout le monde font leur possible, mais c'est un problème de ressources humaines. C'est pas compliqué, puis c'est pas à faute de personne. Puis il y a aussi un problème au niveau de la langue. C'est pas évident d'avoir des personnes qui parlent les deux langues ou qui parlent le français uniquement dans la région Saint-Stephen. Est-ce que vous avez... Je sais que ce projet de loi-là peut peut-être aider parce qu'on donne 3 ans avant la pleine taxation de l'assiette fiscale ou de la valeur fiscale, mais est-ce que vous avez regardé à d'autres solutions à l'interne de votre propre ministère, à savoir s'il y aurait possibilité d'ouvrir un autre bureau pour l'enregistrement des titres, puis ailleurs dans la province que Saint-Stephen, un endroit plus francophone qui pourrait vous aider de ce côté-là? Est-ce que ça a été considéré? Est-ce que c'est pensé? Est-ce que c'est... ou vous avez d'autres solutions pour cette situation-là?
Through the chair to the member opposite, the answers that you were given were not incorrect. There's a number of different factors there. We have a 29% volume increase in land registry this year alone. So the volume is up. We've had 14 retirements. We've restaffed those positions, but you'll have to acknowledge that they are junior. They all need to be trained. We are in a training cycle with them right now. When we look at our key performance indicators, 93% of the properties that come in for registry, we have them completed in 2 or 3 days, but the remaining 7% can take 27 to 28 days. So we're caught a little bit in all of this with the labor issues and everything as well, but we're working really hard to correct that. Did we specifically look at adding an additional registry office in a northern part of the province? No, we haven't done that, but we are a service organization. The customers come first. So, and I understand you're asking this in a collaborative way, so if there are suggestions from your side that you think could help us, we will happily take them and analyze them and then let you know what we think of the idea, whether we believe it's going to help or not, and whether we're going to make some changes.
Monsieur le Président, je vais demander à mes collègues de ne pas écouter, mais une suggestion, ça sera à Belle-Baie, la nouvelle municipalité. Je viens de couvrir la partie données. Maintenant, on va parler de différents incitatifs. Un des incitatifs qu'un promoteur m'a mentionné, il dit, Daniel, il dit, si au moins qu'on aurait un retour d'une partie de notre HST ou la partie provinciale, lui dit que d'autres juridictions ont des plus gros retours, puis à la fin de la journée, ces gens-là sont là pour faire du profit. Puis le retour sur l'investissement, on me dit que c'est à peu près à 7-8 %. Peut-être que vous pourriez me confirmer le retour sur l'investissement dans les blocs appartements. Puis à l'heure actuelle, on peut avoir des dépôts qui est rendu à 3,5-4. Donc, pour le promoteur, c'est quoi l'incitatif, là? Tu laisses ton argent à la banque, tu fais du 4, si tu l'investis, tu travailles, tu crées des mots de tête, tu fais seulement du 7. Puis ça, je parle des gens, parce qu'on a des gens chez nous qui investissent le retour, qu'ils font sur des loyers. Je sais que lorsque tu fais des prêts, tu as l'effet de levier, là, cette situation-là ne s'applique pas. Mais est-ce que considérer une idée de rabais de la HST, la taxe provinciale, la partie provinciale, on ne peut pas impliquer le fédéral, à moins qu'eux veulent s'impliquer, est-ce que c'est aussi considéré? Parce que vous avez parlé qu'il y a d'autres choses qui s'en viennent. Fait, projet de loi, on est d'accord, on va voter pour, on va le passer avant la fin de la soirée. Vous n'avez pas à vous inquiéter. C'est plutôt la situation de l'habitation. On veut comprendre qu'est-ce que le gouvernement est en train de faire sans avoir les secrets. Je veux juste m'assurer qu'à la fin de la journée, on va avoir une stratégie, puis qu'on va pouvoir la corriger ou la réajuster en cours de route. Puis les prochaines questions vont être dans cette direction-là. Fait, est-ce qu'il y a d'autres options? Puis une des idées, c'était un plus gros rabais de la taxe provinciale, la taxe de vente sur les constructions.
So, the work that we're doing right now is focused on looking at what the existing programs that are in place, understanding the gaps that exist there, and then looking at programs or changes we can make to do exactly what we're talking about here. Yes, everything is on the table. An HST rebate is on the table. We are gathering information from other jurisdictions on some best practices they have in their jurisdiction, so we can consider, will they work in New Brunswick and will they have the desired effect that we need? We don't have that analysis done yet, but everything is on the table, including that. We're looking to organize a housing summit in the new year where we want to brainstorm about all these ideas, so then we can analyze how that's going to fill the gaps that we have existing within our system. And so that one's on the list now that you brought it to my attention. Thank you.
J'ai dit qu'on avait fini avec les questions d'unité. J'ai oublié. Qu'est-ce qui est l'impact des Airbnb, des gens qui enlèvent leur unité sur le marché, la maison sur le marché, on la loue plus, on la va à la semaine ou au lieu du mois. Avez-vous une idée de l'impact que ça peut avoir? Puis, on s'entend que je ne pense pas que ce projet de loi-là va corriger ça, mais est-ce que vous avez une idée de l'impact que ça crée à l'heure actuelle?
So first, I want to say that Airbnbs won't be impacted by this proposal, this amendment to the Act at all. It's only for rental units, 2 units and above, or fixing up vacant properties. Right now, the way things stand, Airbnbs would only be dealt with on the municipal level through bylaws. But it is on our radar. Some of our stakeholders has raised this as a concern, so this is on our list of things that we need to look at as we're looking at the spectrum and impacts and doing our gap analysis. So it's there, but I don't have fulsome information around how many Airbnbs there are in New Brunswick or directly the impact on the rental housing unit, but it is on our radar.
Au niveau Monsieur le Président, au niveau du processus, convaincu qu'il y a des investisseurs qui vont vouloir jouer le calendrier. On sait que fin août, je pense qu'il faut que les évaluations soient faites pour pouvoir envoyer l'information aux municipalités par une certaine date en novembre pour qu'eux puissent faire leur budget. Est-ce qu'il y a une grosse différence entre quelqu'un qui débute sa construction le 1er août ou qui débute seulement sa construction le 1er septembre?
Hello, Mr. Chair. Through to the member opposite. So our assessment system is based on the real and true value of that property at January 1st of any given year. Now, rental properties are income properties, so we do not, our assessment is based on the income for those properties. So how many units are they? How much are they charging for the units? What their expenses are against that. We also use market conditions, market information for that area. We work with the property owners, understanding exactly what they're building and where it's going to be at as of January 1st this year, or that particular year. And then we base the assessment on that. So could they play with dates and start at September 1st rather than June 1st so that they'd be less further along as of January 1st? I suppose they could, but the end result is we need more units. And if, as a business person in my former life, I would want to get everything done as fast as I possibly could so I could be realizing my revenue from that property rather than playing around with dates so that anyway. So maybe they will, but I hope they won't because I want them to get going on development yesterday.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think at this time, let's take a 10-minute recess.
And I call the member from Restigouche-Lower.
Bonjour,
Bonjour, comment ça va?
ça va bien?
Très bien?
L'ancien président était tanné de m'entendre ou quoi? The cost of the program, you have an idea how much this program will cost?
To the member opposite through Madam Chair. So yes, we've done a financial analysis of this and understand it's not a true cost, it's a deferral of potential income, not a true cost. But our numbers estimate about just over $5 million a year. 3.9 million of that would be municipal tax and 1.4 million would be provincial. Now, it's important to note that we've already guaranteed the assessment base to the municipalities. So for 2022 and 2023, the province is absorbing the full amount because we've already guaranteed what is going to each municipality. There, I think that's answering your question, though. It's just over $5 million a year.
Vous allez devoir m'éclaircir de quelle façon que vous avez pu garantir les revenus à la province, les revenus aux municipalités, si c'est des revenus anticipés qu'on n'a pas encore eus. J'aimerais comprendre, là. Basé sur l'assiette fiscale, mais la construction va seulement avoir lieu, je ne sais pas quand. Et je vais avoir besoin d'explications supplémentaires. De quelle façon vous avez pu garantir l'assiette fiscale aux municipalités? On n'a pas de construction qui commence encore. Oui, on parle de 2022, là, mais si quelqu'un a un permis de construction la semaine prochaine, de quelle façon qu'on a pu garantir cette assiette fiscale-là?
Through the chair to the member opposite, this is complicated, and I wasn't trying to make things more difficult than they are. So, our assessment base is developed based on the January 1st numbers. We deliver the assessment base information to the municipalities in September for the next year. Our numbers have already been delivered to the municipalities for 2022. They know what those are. But we know, and this has not been approved or passed yet. So there are units under construction that have been started this year that will actually be assessed at the 33% that we did not take into account when we delivered the assessment base to the municipalities. We know that, and we're absorbing that 66% for those units that are under construction now. Does that clarify it? Kind.
Un petit peu. Un petit peu. Puis, je vais vous poser des questions, mais mon collègue qui est dans mon dos, c'est un ancien administrateur municipal, il est beaucoup plus ferré que moi, donc il va y avoir des questions qui s'en viennent sur ça. Quand vous avez parlé de 5 millions, est-ce que ça ne peut pas être 5 millions d'assiette fiscale parce qu'un édifice à logement peut coûter 3-4 millions. Ça doit être 5 millions de revenus comme tel. 3,8 les municipalités, puis 1,2 le gouvernement. Est-ce que c'est pas mal sûr c'est ça? C'est juste m'assurer. Là.
So to the member opposite, I see your friend behind you. I know he's going to have a lot of questions for me. I can just tell by the smile on his face, which is great. I enjoy this conversation back and forth because I think it's helpful to just talk about all the details of this for both of us to understand this better, and anybody that is listening to us tonight or this afternoon. It feels like tonight. So we based our calculations on the 2021 numbers. That was the robust year where we're seeing a lot of development. Things are very, very good in the development in New Brunswick. So we based it on the 135 units that were building permits that were put in place in 2021. That equated to about $252 million in assessment value. You are correct, the $5 million would be tax revenue. So, and that's the complication we get in a lot of times talking about assessment base and tax revenue. They're different, and they're different depending on what municipality you're in. So we took an average of what the municipal rates were to arrive at the $5 million approximately.
Quand vous dites que, Madame la Présidente, quand la ministre dit que les municipalités sont garanties d'avoir ces revenus-là parce que la province, quand même, tenu compte de ces futures constructions-là, puis ça ne sera pas enlevé de leur base. Elle parle seulement des unités de 2022 qui sont en construction aujourd'hui, qu'on est au courant, qui sont en construction. Elle ne parle pas du permis de construction qui va être émis cet hiver ou au printemps. Les futurs permis de construction, je parle de 223, 224, il pourra avoir, ce n'est pas des pertes parce que c'est des nouveaux revenus, c'est des pertes de revenus anticipés. Est-ce que j'ai raison lorsque je dis ça?
C'est correct.
It didn't give me much time to think of my following question.
Ouais, tu as demandé une question. Ouais.
Ouais? What? Look, I painted myself in the corner. I can't blame anyone. During the municipal reform, the government has transferred some responsibilities to the RSCs. And am I right that housing or housing for low-income people was one of them?
To the member opposite, that was one item that was in the white paper for local governance reform. I'm not prepared to speak on behalf of the Minister of Local Government Reform, so exactly where that stands, I'm unsure, but I will get on top of that as part of the housing file as well, but I can't answer that, and I'm not going to speak to his file tonight.
Je vous blâme pas pour ces totalement une autre direction, mais ça crée des inquiétudes. Maintenant, vous avez mis un projet de loi en place pour répondre à certaines questions ou certaines craintes qu'avaient les entrepreneurs. Have you put in place a monitoring system to follow this bill to see the type of result? I know you've said you're aiming for the 2021 numbers. What type of monitoring you'll have in place, or kind of reporting, and will you report back to the hubs or the MLAs or to the population, or all the monitoring of that bill as far as the results? Who will look? I suppose it'll be your department, but how will it work?
Through the chair to the member opposite, this is going to be an application-based program. So we will be collecting data about all the properties that request to have this reduction in their assessment. So we'll have data and we'll be able to understand the success, the results. Are we getting the anticipated benefits from this program? And we'll make adjustments along the way if we have to. That's the one thing about this new housing portfolio is we're able to be a bit more nimble and move things along, get away from the bureaucracy and red tape. And we will report it in our housing progress report. The frequency of that, I have not settled on yet. Some of this can happen quite slowly. As you know, development can happen slowly. But we will be doing a housing progress report and report all that information. We also will have a website where that information will be posted as well, because as it's application-based, we're going to have real-time information on that rather than waiting for some outside agency to do measurements for us. So we will include information about that on our website as well.
C'est les questions que j'avais par rapport au projet de loi et les différentes unités, mais tandis que j'ai, vous et vos employés ici, j'aurais des questions par rapport à la stratégie que vous avez mis en place cette année pour aider les citoyens, des citoyens qui ont été expulsés. On s'entend qu'il y a des bons propriétaires, puis il y a des investisseurs, puis il y a Airbnb, que vous en avez parlé un peu tout à l'heure. Puis je comprends que c'est difficile d'arriver avec un projet de loi qui pénalise un puis qui protège l'autre. C'est des gens dans la construction. Combien, selon vous, de personnes auraient été expulsées de leur appartement ou menacées d'expulser de leurs appartements suite à des achats de conglomérats d'investisseurs au Nouveau-Brunswick? Ils viennent, ils achètent des appartements, un bloc, les appartements soient à 600 $, puis tout d'un coup, mettre les gens dehors. Il y a des gens qui ont utilisé vos services, il y a des gens qui ne l'ont pas fait. Avez-vous une idée de l'effet de ces achats-là au Nouveau-Brunswick sur les locataires? Il y a combien eu d'expulsions totales dans l'année?
Through to the member opposite, there are evictions that happen that we would not have any knowledge of. We can only report to you what we know from the Residential Tenancies Tribunal. So that is where a tenant is concerned about an eviction or a rent increase, or concerned about something related to their tenancy. They would go to the Residential Tenancies Tribunal and ask for help and ask them to mediate between them and their landlord. So we made some legislative changes in March, limiting the reasons why a landlord can terminate a tenancy. So there was now only 4 acceptable reasons to end a tenancy. Family member is going to move into the unit. There is extensive renovations requiring the unit to be vacated, converting it into a non-residential premises, or a superintendent of the property is no longer employed at that property. So those are the only allowable reasons. And so since March, There were approximately 69 applications for assistance as of October 1st, so that doesn't include last month or this month. Of the cases that came before us, 14 of those of the 69 were denied, 12 were confirmed. 8 of them were confirmed and delayed. 2 were withdrawn by the landlord. 27 were withdrawn by the tenant. And 6 of them, the tenant didn't meet the different deadlines they needed to for the cases. So this is, we don't, so I can't, part of your question is, do you know how many across the province? No, we only know the ones where the tenants have come to the Residential Tenancies Tribunal.
Vous avez parlé d'une soixantaine, il me semble, c'est pas beaucoup. Mon collègue juste ici, il y avait un bloc appartement qui avait combien d'appartements?
Je pense qu'il y en avait 10 au moins.
10, 11, juste à Bathurst, je considère. C'est pas beaucoup, 69. Est-ce que vous parlez de comme un bloc de 20 unités considéré un dans vos chiffres ou que c'est vraiment 20 dans vos chiffres que vous venez de me donner?
Si ça serait un, ça fait du sens parce qu'on est pas tout à bloc.
These are each unit, so they're individual cases. So 20 units in a building and they all came to the RTT, they would be 20 on this number of this 69.
C'est quoi votre évaluation du programme? C'est vraiment pas beaucoup, là. Si on se fie qu'est-ce qu'on voit dans les médias, je ne suis pas dans vos bureaux, là, je ne vois pas les chiffres, là. Puis les coups de téléphone que je reçois à mon bureau, c'est vraiment pas beaucoup. Est-ce qu'il y a une raison? Pourquoi est-ce que les gens ne l'utilisent pas? Est-ce que vous avez fait une évaluation? Puis là, ce n'est pas une critique, là, je veux juste comprendre.
Through the chair to the member opposite, we did an extensive public media campaign to try to raise awareness about the Residential Tenancies Tribunal. It doesn't, you're right, it does not sound like a lot of numbers, and we're learning more all the time and adjusting. We're going to do more media campaign to try to make an awareness of this is a service that is provided for tenants and landlords as a mediator, an independent service that, they are independent, so not even under, political will can't change anything. They're an independent group that looks at the market conditions at the existing unit and mediates between the tenant and the landlord. So yes, the numbers are very small. It would be great if this just indicates there's some few bad problems and the majority is in great shape. I think as we delve further into this housing file, we'll get a better handle on whether that's actually the case or whether there's more problems out there that we don't know about. But we're here to learn and get better, so thank you for asking that question.
J'avais, dans ma liste de questions, combien d'expulsions, combien vous avez réussi à aider, qu'est-ce qui était la moyenne des corrections? Moi, je pense que vous l'avez tout répondu dans le rapport. Est-ce que c'est possible d'avoir une copie de ce rapport-là? Est-ce que c'est de l'information publique ou c'est peut-être... Ben, c'est public, on est à l'Assemblée législative, mais...
Through to the member opposite here, you can have this page if you'd like it. Am I allowed? I'm not allowed to give it to him? Okay, I will give it to you later. How's that?
No.
Madam Chair, excuse me, Madam
order.
Chair. Oh, sorry. Could the document please be provided to the chair and given to all the committee members? Thank you.
Ça va être ma dernière question. Ça, c'est une promesse. Je veux en profiter pour remercier votre équipe. Comme je l'ai dit, votre discours est positif. On sait que c'est monumental. Juste le fait de savoir, moi, personnellement, qu'on s'occupe finalement du dossier, parce que ça fait 1 an et demi. Même, je me souviens de l'ancienne ministre du Développement social, Cathy Rogers, c'était dans nos caucus, elle ramenait ça régulièrement. Le problème était plus à Moncton à l'époque. Puis que finalement, fin 2022, qu'on va regarder une stratégie d'ensemble, ça me réconforte. Sauf qu'il ne faudrait pas s'éterniser. Il faut amener d'autres. C'est un début. Comme je l'ai dit hier, c'est pas suffisant, mais je ne vous critique pas ou je ne vous blâme pas à ce moment-ci. Il faut commencer à quelque part, mais il faut vraiment aller plus loin. Dans les consultations, vous avez mentionné une pile de ministères, tout ça. Est-ce que vous avez consulté les différentes universités? Probablement qu'à travers l'éducation postsecondaire, to pedal, you've consulted with the community colleges, but have you consulted with the universities?
Through the chair to the member opposite, you know, we started this discussion looking at which departments were involved in this process, and ONB and post-secondary education, training, and labor were on the list. And part of that is because they bring the perspective, the labor perspective, so the workforce housing perspective, but they also bring the post-secondary education perspective to this. As we move further through this new role and this new department, this new ministry, we will engage with those groups as well, not just the departments, but the groups as well. We have spoken directly to some different representatives of those two groups, but it's a good suggestion, and we will take that under advisement going forward to talk to them directly as well. Thank you.
C'est tout pour les questions. Je me réserve le droit de revenir, tant et aussi longtemps qu'on n'a pas voté le projet de loi, mais encore là, du côté de l'opposition officielle, on a l'intention d'approuver le projet de loi, sauf qu'on veut en profiter pour comprendre mieux on pose beaucoup de questions pour comprendre mieux la situation, la problématique avec l'hébergement au Nouveau-Brunswick. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
The member from Member Cook-Cantramar.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the Minister and her team for being here today. And you've already been answering questions for a couple of hours. We've got at least another hour to go today, I guess. I want to start by following up on a topic that you were just discussing in terms of the Ministry of Housing. Having a minister responsible for housing is something that I think was needed, and so I'm glad that someone's wearing that hat now. Could you tell us a bit more, through the chair to the minister, could the minister tell us a bit more about what the ministry looks like in terms of how many staff are there, what roles are there, and what is the mandate? It's new, so I'm very curious to hear more. Thank you.
Through the chair to the member opposite, it's a really good question, and I've been asked this question a few times over the last 4 weeks. I think it's been 4 weeks. And some of it is to be determined. So there is not any one person directly working for a housing department currently at this moment. We're in the evaluation phase, and I've talked about it many times about the spectrum and looking, and we're doing an analysis of what's existing programs are in place and doing a gap analysis. As we're doing that, we're getting a better understanding of the strengths and weaknesses in each of the departments that are have some piece of housing in their portfolio. And it will be determined down the road as we set our strategy what exactly this is going to look like when we get to maybe the point where we're implementing that strategy. So I'll bring you along on the ride with me as we begin understanding exactly what's part of housing and how this is going to look down the road.
Okay. Thank you to the minister through the chair. So just to be clear, there are no staff specific to housing right now. It is the list of departments, people from those departments meeting together to discuss housing at this point. I know you listed several, the minister listed several, Finance and Treasury Board, Social Development, Health, ONB, RDC, PEDAL, DTI, ELG, SNB. So that's what sort of the Ministry of Housing right now is those departments having representatives meet. Could you just clarify, and if there is anything to elaborate on, could you please do so? Thank you.
So all those departments are involved in getting a fulsome understanding of the full spectrum and where we have gaps. Now there's a lot of hefty lifting going on right now in SNB and Social Development, the two departments, a lot of heavy lifting with their staff. There's a lot of work and a lot of responsibility both departments have related to housing. So those two teams are doing the heavy lifting at the moment, and we're pulling in the other groups as needed as we move along this journey of 4 weeks. And so there's not letterhead for the Department of Housing. There is no staff member that works for the Department of Housing. The power that we have right now is we have one group, which is me and the team that's supporting me from a few departments that are looking at the whole spectrum now rather than each department focusing on the tiny piece of it they have. And we will, develop what is needed to fill those gaps going forward. But I can't tell you exactly what that is today, 4 weeks in.
Thank you through the chair to the minister. So I know that the previous Minister of Service New Brunswick was often speaking on the housing file and said that there were regularly meetings between different departments discussing these issues of housing. So could the minister tell us what's different between the previous Minister of Service New Brunswick and working on the housing file versus now? Thank you.
So you're correct. The previous minister did talk about housing on different levels. What's different is you actually have somebody that's responsible. The buck stops here. Before, there was responsibility in many different departments, and each department has their small piece of it. Now the buck stops here. There's one person that's responsible for this ministry, and thank goodness I have teams doing heavy lifting all around me to help get a better understanding of where we're at and where we need to go, so we can actually have a strategy, a high-level strategy to look at how to solve this crisis and set New Brunswick up to be successful, because housing supports our population, it supports health, it supports our economy, and so now we have one person responsible that ends up having to, be responsible for it and answer to it.
Thank you, through the chair, to the minister. I don't think it would be you, because you now have the role, minister responsible for housing, but I'd argue we need one for public transport as well. You'd say almost the same thing about as what you just said. And so I appreciate the minister providing a bit more detail on what has happened so far. It sounds like it's very early days in terms of the housing file. I would like to jump in to the bill in question. I heard questions going back and forth earlier, but I just want to seek clarity on the question of where exactly did this idea come from to change the assessments in the first year and the second year for those who are eligible under this bill. Thank you.
Through the chair to the member opposite, when I talked about it last time, this idea came from stakeholders, and we explored it and looked at other jurisdictions, looked at our own legislation to see if there was a fit with what we currently had. And, you know, it de-risks the development a bit, which then encourages more development to happen and will help us get out of this crisis we're in right now.
Thank you to the minister through the chair. Could you please share more information about the jurisdictional scans that were done and where this type of legislation has been implemented?
Through the chair to the member opposite, we did a jurisdictional scan in Canada and didn't find many jurisdictions that were doing anything much like this. We know BC is phasing in tax to try to encourage the same thing. We saw some municipalities that were doing some similar things, but we were looking for new and innovative opportunities for a province rather than a municipality. We don't want our municipalities competing with each other for development. It needs to be looked at a provincial level. So there's no other jurisdiction that's doing exactly this, and we did find that out with our jurisdictional scan.
Thank you to the minister for the response. Could you tell us which municipalities have implemented this type of policy?
Opposite, we don't have that information specifically with us, but we can produce it later for you.
So thank you through the chair to the minister. Yes, if you can provide that information to the chair so it can be distributed to the committee. I guess I have some follow-up questions that may need to go with that if you don't have the answers right now. So through the chair to the minister, I also wanted to know when these policies were implemented in these other jurisdictions. It sounds like it was all in municipalities. So when they were implemented and what the results have been. So I don't know if you have any of those right now. I'll give the minister a chance to respond.
Don't have that information with me, but we'll share the information that we have when we'll put it together for you. How's that?
So thank you to the minister and her team for agreeing to bring that information back to the committee. I appreciate that. I'm wondering, so in the absence of that, could the minister speak to any other evidence that was gathered in terms of why this would be a desirable or effective program? What sort of research or evidence exists? Thank you.
Through the chair to the member opposite, the stakeholders have told us that incentives such like this will help them build more units. We have a good relationship with our stakeholders, and we need them to build more, so we need to listen to them when they tell us what is required to get them to build more.
Thank you, through the chair to the minister. So just to be clear, aside from the information that will be forthcoming about the jurisdictional scans, is there any other data that the minister could share with the committee regarding this policy? Thank you.
Through the chair to the member opposite, could you be more specific? Because we have all kinds of data about all kinds of different things related to development, but specifically, what are you looking for?
Thank you to the minister for the question. I would be looking for data that would provide evidence to back up why this type of policy would be effective. So I guess I would throw it back to the minister through the chair to provide evidence or justification for bringing in this type of financial incentive for this group of people. Thank you.
To the member opposite, we went from 135 new properties being developed in 2021 to 45. Was it 45? 45 last year, and we are in a housing crisis. We need to be innovative with our solutions to get more units developed to solve this crisis. And so that's our evidence, is that we are not getting the development that we need here in New Brunswick, and we need to incentivize developers to build more units because we are in a crisis.
Through the chair to the minister, thank you for your response. In terms of evidence, I know that the minister is talking about being innovative. However, what we're talking about is providing financial incentives for a certain group of people, and I think that it is incumbent on me to ask questions about, well, where's the evidence? How will this be effective? Is this actually a good policy to bring forward? I wonder if the minister could tell us more about the stakeholders who she's been meeting with, or who the staff have been meeting with, that brought forward this idea.
So, through the chair to the member opposite, you're right. You should be asking me these questions, and I should be supporting them and answering them. So thank you for doing that and challenging me on how we're moving forward. Now, some of the groups that I personally and the team more than once have met with to discuss the fundamental issue we have, which economists have been writing about, but our demand is outpacing our supply. So our problem is we are not building enough units to keep up with the pace of what is required for New Brunswick. And so we've talked to the Landlord Association, we've talked to numerous landlords and developers, the Real Estate Association, municipalities, many meetings with the different municipalities, the 8 cities, the Union of Municipalities in New Brunswick, the Francophone municipalities of New Brunswick. And interestingly, I will add on here that, you know, we announced this amendment on November 1st, and the thank you that we are getting from municipalities, from all the different associations, has been, the feedback has been extremely positive about this proposed amendment, because you're right, it is a financial incentive to develop, but our problem is we do not have enough supply, and it's just outpacing everything that's happening, and we need to get back to where we were in 2021 or better than that to be able to address the workforce expansion needs, the immigration we have happening in our province, and all these many newcomers to New Brunswick that need housing.
Thank you, through the chair, to the minister for the response. So I heard the Landlord Association, Real Estate Association, the associations for both the UMNB and the Francophone municipalities, 8 cities. I wonder if the minister met with any tenants' rights associations. Thank you.
Opposite, yes.
Thank you to the minister through the chair. Could the minister indicate who she met with? Thank you.
Through the chair to the member opposite, the NB Tenants Coalition and Acorn.
Thank you to the minister through the chair. And I'm wondering, there are a lot of different ways to approach this housing crisis, and so I'm wondering, how was this selected? I know earlier there were even other ideas being thrown around. I'm thinking that the Tenants Coalition and Acorn had ideas that were different from this one. I'm wondering, how was this selected over other ideas?
To the member opposite, this is just one. You're right, they had different ideas. There is more to come. We're just talking about the first one, and there will be more to come.
Thank you, through the chair, to the minister. I think I've been here long enough to know that I can ask you what's coming and that you won't be able to tell me. All right. Well, let's see, through the chair to the minister. Can the minister indicate what other measures are coming that will address the housing crisis, and how does that fit into a plan to do so? Thank you.
Through the chair to the member opposite, yeah, you know me pretty well by now, and I'm not going to tell you specifically what's coming. But, when we look at the housing spectrum, there's pieces all along it. But, one of the other very urgent pieces of this is related to affordable housing. So, when we talk about the housing spectrum, affordable housing is only a tiny piece of it. So there are, as we look at what existing programs are in place and the gaps that are there is certainly going to be an eye to affordable housing for our population as well. So I'm not going to tell you specifically all the things that are on the table at the moment, but you'll learn some of that as we start sharing information that we've collected about the spectrum, the programs that are in place and the gaps that are there, and then, asking for feedback on how to fill those gaps as well. So you can come on this journey with us, but I don't have all the answers for you right now.
Well, I tried, Madam Chair. I wonder, as we're talking about this, I wonder how many of these Well, actually, I'm going to ask another question first. I heard earlier that the minister's information indicates that they might create they might get to 135 new builds. If I'm correct, could the minister let us know how many units they think that will translate to, like individual apartments? Thank you.
Through the chair to the member opposite, approximately 2,000.
Thank you, through the chair. To the minister, and of those approximately 2,000 units, how many of those would be affordable units? Thank you.
Through the chair to the member opposite, we don't know how many of those units would be affordable.
To go back to, and actually another question would be, how many of those would be in urban areas or in rural areas?
Through the chair to the member opposite, we sincerely hope it's all over the province, but this is not something we can control about where the units will go. It's the private enterprise developers building these units, and they assess where the need is most.
Through the chair to the minister. So this is a mechanism that is really focused on private development. Are there provisions or attempts, or I guess plans to really engage in terms of nonprofit or cooperative housing? And would this apply to those types of projects? Thank you.
Chair to the member opposite, the crisis we're in has not just happened overnight. It's developed over time, and it's going to require a holistic approach to solve it. And that means the government can't do it by themselves, private industry can't do it by themselves, so there's absolutely a role for not-for-profits, for housing collectives. I mean, an example of that is the NB Housing Hub that we announced funding for a couple of weeks ago, whose focus is going to be housing in rural areas. And also, I mean, 3 weeks ago, our government announced $102 million to construct 380 new units. That's the first time anybody's built new units within social development in 38 years. So there is a big commitment behind this. Part of that announcement was upgrading and renovating 110 units that are currently sitting vacant. So we can immediately get 110 units back online before the end of this fiscal year. So the commitment is here. It's going to take a holistic approach, and we need all hands on deck to solve this problem.
Thank you to the minister through the chair. In terms of the current rental landscape, it is true that there's private, there's public, there's been cooperatives and nonprofits who are running housing, and I do think it's a major problem that there's not been investment in new housing in the public sector for 38 years, and it's part of what's led us to where we are today, and so it's a major issue, and there's a long way to go to have enough housing. In terms of who owns what in the rental landscape, could the minister remind us how many rental units are out there in New Brunswick as it stands right now?
38,000 approximately.
Thank you to the minister for the quick response. And how many of these would be managed, owned by nonprofits?
Chair, to the member opposite, we don't have that number on hand, but we can provide that information after.
Thank you, through the chair, to the minister. I guess I'm also wondering about the breakdown of who owns what housing. And so nonprofits and cooperatives would be part of that. Some of it would be corporations. And I'm wondering about REITs, so real estate investment trusts, how many units that they own.
Through the chair to the member opposite, it feels like we're getting a little off topic from the bill that we have proposed. So can I propose that you come in and meet with my team and we can answer some of these specific questions for you that aren't specifically related to the proposal we have at hand?
So thank you to the minister for the offer to meet. I do think that my questions are relevant to the bill because I'm trying to figure out who owns the rentals out there and who stands to benefit in terms of their market share, in terms of building. I'm trying to figure out how many units are owned by REITs and what role they might play in terms of taking advantage of this legislation.
The chair to the member opposite, it does help when you described more of why you are asking the questions you are asking. So I've got a few things to say around this. One, our experience shows that REITs don't generally build, they buy, so therefore would not benefit from this particular amendment at all. Not-for-profits could benefit this program, but they also have other avenues to also reduce tax. There's a stream they can go through social development that they would benefit from some tax reductions too, but they could benefit, they could share in the benefit of this. But I do want to note this particular program is for 2 units and above. So it's not just focused on the big guys that are building 50-unit apartment buildings. This is for anybody that wants a 2-unit or above property, so an income property for themselves. So the focus is on anybody that's building new units now. And it's also for vacant and stagnant properties. We have buildings sitting there empty, not being properly maintained. These derelict buildings, we want them back in circulation as housing as well. So that's part of why they are included in this. So there's many opportunities to take advantage of this program, and every single one that can results in more units for New Brunswickers, which is the problem we are trying to solve, supply. Thank you.
Thank you to the minister through the chair. When it comes to real estate investment trusts, to REITs, my understanding is that they can and do build sometimes, but they, to follow up on what the minister just said, could also buy and then renovate a building. And so I think that REITs could take advantage of this, and so I just want to get clarity from the minister. Would real estate investment trusts stand to benefit and take advantage of this policy?
The chair to the member opposite, it is possible they could qualify. We have the criteria built in that I've talked about. So it is possible, but they have to be building more units, which is exactly what we need, which is more units and more supply. So I don't know why I'm doing that. So they still help solve the problem, and they're still a piece of this puzzle, and it is a puzzle.
To the minister through the chair, I would agree that it is a puzzle. I often say when there's a complex problem, that means there's complex solution. However, I do think that there can be issues when it comes to real estate investment trusts. Among them being that REITs do not pay provincial income tax. And so part of my concern is with this incentive for REITs where they aren't contributing back in terms of provincial income tax. I wonder if the minister could speak to that.
Through the chair to the member opposite, my goal is to get more units. That's the fundamental problem we're having right now and the fundamental crisis. I hear your concerns, and I will have a discussion with the Minister of Finance and Treasury Board. That is more in his file. Income tax is his file. But if these amendments get approved and we move forward, if we find gaps in this system that need to be addressed, we will do it, and we will do it quickly.
Thank you to the minister through the chair. I agree that we absolutely need more housing, and this is something that I have spoken about regularly in the House since I've been elected. We have major issues in urban areas, in rural areas, and especially when it comes to affordable housing. And I've seen people losing their housing. In fact, part of what we've witnessed is the upward pressure on rents coming from the strategies that REITs employ to try to push the rents up, because their goal is to squeeze as much profit as they can out of housing, to extract as much as they can in terms of profit from housing. And so they thrive on creating upward pressure on rents. I think that's a major concern, and I'm concerned about them further benefiting if they buy and renovate, or if they build new. And so while some of the issues do certainly exist either with the Minister of Finance or with the federal government, sometimes there's more than one jurisdiction that has a role to play when it comes to taxation, when it comes to some of these things. Certainly the federal government could be lobbied to do more on their part. But when it comes to real estate investment trusts, one thing that we could do here with this legislation would to make it so that they are not eligible. And so I'd like to move an amendment. So for the act respecting the Assessment Act, amend said bill as follows: in section 2, add after paragraph 2.41 3b the following: B.1, the applicant is not a real estate investment trust as defined in subsection 122.1 parentheses 1 close parentheses of the Income Tax Act Canada. Thank you, Madam Chair.
It has been moved that section 2 be amended by, after the paragraph 2.41, B3B, the following: B1, the applicant is not a real estate investment trust as defined by section 122.11 of the Income Tax Act, Canada. Are there any questions or comments on the amendment?
I can, questions to the minister? I can't ask questions there, I'll ask questions here just on, do we understand that the real estate investment trusts are essentially these companies that are coming in that are purchasing these buildings for purpose of reselling, essentially, upping the value of the properties, reselling quickly at a much higher profit, which is causing a lot of pressure on your department and on I don't know, forget the name, the rentalsmen that are getting RTT. Is that what your department understands of these organizations?
Through the chair, I think I want to speak on the proposed amendment. I do understand the member opposite's concerns, but it's like hitting an ant with a sledgehammer, completely eliminating one group from being able to benefit from this incentive to get more development. Our issue is supply, and this is painting a broad brush stroke that every real estate investment trust are bad guys, and they're not all bad guys. And profit is not a bad word. So the proposed amendment that is here, I can't support. I don't like hitting ants with sledgehammers. Thank you, Chair.
Gush Bathurst?
He's resting. Just a further clarification on maybe some stats. My understanding is a lot of these trusts where the problem is they're coming in purchasing existing buildings and maybe renovating. Do you have any stats on how many real estate trusts, investment trusts, have actually built new buildings or new builds, or is it mostly on the renovation side and it still falls in the purview of what the bill is trying to achieve on tax breaks?
Through to the other member opposite, we don't have data on exactly how many REITs are in New Brunswick. You know, when you build, we have information on building permits, but they could be requesting a building permit with a numbered company. We would not know they were a REIT. So I'm sorry, I can't answer your question that you've asked me specifically. Anecdotally, the ones that we do know of are not building new buildings. They're buying existing buildings.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to respond and comment. So what we're talking about here are specific types of companies that are set up that don't pay provincial income tax, but would be getting this additional incentive. And I do think that that is a problem, to not be paying taxes and for, frankly, profits to be funneled away. it's a type of structure that I think is problematic, and what we've seen is the way that they've been used is to put upward pressure on rents. I think it's highly problematic, and this is one way. It doesn't mean that REITs won't buy and renovate and still jack up the rents. It doesn't mean they, and I think there should be other protections in place for tenants. That would be other legislation, but what can be done in this legislation is to ensure that this type of company setup that's not paying provincial income tax does not get this this financial benefit. Thank you.
Through the chair to the member opposite, this program will be application-based. So this program will allow us to see how big that problem actually is. We don't have that data right now. And if we find that there is an issue and a problem in the province with this, we will consider solutions to it once we understand what the problem actually is and how big it is.
We just have the phone.
To the minister through the chair, I'm glad that there will be data collected, that there will be evaluation through this program. However, we already do have information about how some REITs have functioned in the province, Killam being an example. And we already know how the whole point of REITs is to force upward pressure on rents and to extract as much as they can in terms of profit, and but they're not paying provincial income tax. And so I think that's one of the key things that this comes back to. And so in the application process, then they could be weeded out and told you can go about your business elsewhere, but you're not going to get this tax break.
So is it the pleasure of the committee to adopt the amendment? All in favor, please say yea. Yay. Opposed, say nay. Nay. I believe the nays have it. The motion is defeated. Okay.
What's the
We'll
problem
call for
with
a vote.
that?
Leave until we have a vote. All those in favor of the amendment, please rise.
Ms. Mitten?
And all those opposed, please rise.
Ms. Green? Ms. Bacchus? Mr. Dawson? Mr. Steves? Mr. Turner? Ms. Wilson, Moncton Southwest? Mr. Ames? Monsieur Legacy? Monsieur Lepage? Yeas pour 1, nays contre 9, 9.
In my opinion, the nays have it, and the amendment is defeated. I recognize the member from Memram Cook Tantramar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sure.
Recognizing Member Cook Cantromar.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Just looking at the clock, I guess we've brought the team back in for probably one more question. So I'd like to ask, what is the projected cost of this legislation? So what are the projected revenue loss for, I don't know how many years you would have it for, but let's say for the next several years. Thank you.
Through the chair to the member opposite, it's deferred revenue, not typical cost, but $5 million per year.
Is 6 long? One more minute. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, to the Minister. So just to be clear, so it's anticipated to be $5 million a year that would not be collected, and is that expected to be consistent over the long term, or is that just the projection for the first year? And I'm sure I won't get to stand up again, so I want to say thank you to the Minister and her team.
So it'd be $5 million a year ongoing. It's based on our 2021 development numbers, so 135 units. Hopefully it'll spur on more development than that, so it could be greater going forward, but we anticipate $5 million a year.
Okay, and seeing,
Could just ask if there's further questions on this bill.
oh, is there further questions on this bill?
Yes, I will have further questions, but I know we're done for today. So thank you through the chair to the Minister and her team.
Okay, seeing as it's 6 o'clock, I call this meeting adjourned.